Hello, my name is Jon Bernard. I'm the Superintendent of Schools in North Reading. I'd like to welcome you to this edition of Inside NRPS. My guest today is Dr. Patrick Daly, who is currently the Assistant Superintendent for our school district. Patrick, welcome.
Thank you so much, John. I'm happy to be here.
It's nice to have you. So, Patrick, you have a lot going on. We have a lot to talk about this morning. As I think probably much of the community knows, I'll be retiring from my position as superintendent on January 1st of 2020, and I could not be more thrilled that you will be taking over for me on that day. So today is, I think, an opportunity for me to talk with you about your integration into your new role and give you an opportunity to talk to the community about kind of the time ahead in the role of the superintendency. So why don't we begin a little bit with maybe you telling us a little bit about your background and what's brought you to this exciting new position.
Great. Well, I'll start by addressing the elephant in the room. We all have our beards for No Shave November.
Yes.
And I think yours looks great. Mine looks good. It's coming in well as well. So.
And we're raising some good money for cancer research.
Absolutely. So I'm very excited. I had the opportunity to go through the process and to interview back in June and was appointed. And I'd like to, publicly thank you for the great transition, the period that we've had for transition time. We've been meeting dedicated time just on transition for the last several months since the school year, really since the summer. And so just wrapping my head around all those pieces that are I've been in the district now for 10 years or so, but things that are going to be specific to the role of superintendent, school committee meetings and agendas and different committees that you're on that I've been aware of, but I have been sort of your invited guest and I've got to meet some of the key players and you do have a different relationship, I think, as superintendent than even as assistant super. You're sort of on some executive boards and the CIT board and the parent advisory group, and there's just some different meetings that I've been to, and some that I still have coming up in late November and December that I'm looking forward to. So
as am I. It has been a nice opportunity to work even closer with you, and I wasn't sure that we would even be able to get to work any more closely than we do, because I feel like we spend an awful lot of time together. And I'm glad that you mentioned about the transition, because I think it's important for the community to know that we are spending some dedicated time together, have been and will continue to spend some dedicated time together to ensure that we have kind of the smoothest transition in leadership for everyone that is a constituent of our school district, parents, the students, the staff, and really the community as a whole, because I think as you are well aware and are becoming probably increasingly aware, the job of the superintendent is really a community position. It is much more than just the school district, and I think that's a good thing, particularly in our community. But we do serve, as you said, on a number of other kind of boards and commissions outside of the work of the school district that do benefit us as a school district. But I think as a whole, we work to better the community, and I think that's been one of the things that I've enjoyed a lot about being the superintendent here. And I have, certainly, when I was considering my retirement and I knew that the school committee would begin the search to hire a replacement, you were, in my opinion, you were the obvious choice, and I'm glad they saw it that way too, because I do think your skill set, the background you have, you said you've been in the district for 10 years, that's, in our business, that's a commitment. That's a good long period of time to work in the same district, and I fully believe that you'll be here in North Reading for a long time to continue. And I think that's important. That kind of stability, I think, is valuable to the school district. It's valuable to the community, and I think you are certainly, in my opinion, well prepared to take over on January 2nd. But with that said, there is still some work to be done, and we will, as you mentioned, continue our transition work over the next few weeks, and I'll certainly make myself available to you in January and beyond. So let's talk a little bit, Patrick, about you as the superintendent-elect. That's kind of the term we've been using around the office, and I think it might be a nice opportunity for you to share and for the community to hear about what some of the goals of your work will be. Maybe in the short term and in the long term. Certainly, change is good. I think you're going to look at things a little bit differently. I think you'll approach things differently than I did, and I think that's a good thing. So maybe you can share some of that.
Yeah, and I think, similar to what I talked about during my interview process is that, North Reading's headed in a very good direction. Scores are good, schools are good, morale is good. The community, the support, the involvement from the parents, the athletics, the performing arts, everything is in a great direction. I'm not looking to come in here and steer us in a wildly different direction, you know. But at the same time, obviously, I'm a different person. I'm going to have some ideas and some vision and some things that I'm going to carry forward. So, what I shared recently with the school committee was sort of my entry plan. So, you know, even though you've been here 10 years, again, you're seeing things through a different lens now. People, I've even noticed, you know, some of the times when someone comes in your office and shuts the door, the conversation's a little different. And I'm sure
Now,
you've noticed that too.
yeah,
It's just
absolutely.
because now your audience is with the superintendent. It's just a little bit different. And they know now that I need to know things. And so, you know, I'm going to be gathering a lot of information. So I've created a graphic that I share with school committee just to talk about what I've been doing so far.
I can hold that up. This is a document that was presented to the school committee very recently, right, in November, I believe.
Yes.
November 4th.
And we can give a copy here. They can maybe put it on the screen too as we talk through it. But the idea is that during the fall, I've been doing a lot of listening and learning. So I've always, as an assistant, done these, I call them brown bag lunches. It's actually an idea that former Governor Michael Dukakis, I was at a forum and he talked about that's a good thing for a leader to do. And I like that idea. So you get out, you have lunch at the buildings and people just come, drop in, and you talk about anything. It's just a way to have a forum for that. And so I heard some different things this year, obviously, you know, as that superintendent-elect.
Sure.
I heard some assistant superintendent things and here's some thoughts for the future. And I think that was great. So I'm continuing to do that. And I want to do that even more, get some voices from students, from community. Some of these things I'm going to do a little bit more formally in the new role. And then I would gather information during that period of the spring and do some analysis around, you know, what am I hearing? What are some of those ideas? And then share that back with the community through the form of an entry plan, share it with the school committee, share it with our leadership team, and really use a lot of protocols to think about, you know, why things are the way they are and what could we change and what could we do differently. So I'm, you know, one of the great things that you did, honestly, for me as someone coming in is to announce your retirement as soon as you did, allowed me time to transition, but also to begin in the cohort of the new superintendent's induction program in July. So that program gives me an official mentor, which Joan Connolly, fantastic former superintendent, has been great. All the support of that group, and I've been going to those meetings and learning, even though some of the things I can't quite do yet. I feel like I'm ahead of the game and doing those things. So a lot of those folks, and when I mentioned structured protocols, they've got some real tools for me to use with the administrative team, some base surveys to do with the community, the parents. So I'm going to be doing some of those things. But we're in a unique opportunity in North Reading where many people are learning some of these things for the first time. We're actually third generation because Kathy Willis was the first generation to kind of go through the program. We developed our strategy, NRPS 2016. You came in after Kathy, so it was sort of round two with NRPS 2021. And so one of the things that's hit me as I'm sitting at those meetings is I think when you took over from Kathy, we continued some of what's done, and we didn't do some of those initial things that we did with Kathy because we had only just done them 4.5 years earlier. I'm starting to think, it's since now it's been about 10 years since we've done them. I might go back and just do some of those things from the get-go. And so, what I'm suggesting here is that we think about, as we talk about our goal setting and looking at our strategic plan, I'm thinking of doing a new 5-year plan starting this summer that would bring us to NRPS 2025. So that's the idea that I'm thinking about is, we'll tie in our last year of 2021 and then also think forward another 5 years and do some of that. Where do we want to be in 5 years thinking? It just makes sense with the transition time for me to start thinking ahead to that 5 years. And there's also just a lot of new things that are coming out right now that weren't on our radar even a couple of years ago. And so it just makes sense to do that.
So when you mention new things, initiatives coming out of, say, the State Department of Education.
State Department, a lot with, I'm thinking a lot about with computer science and new pathways for mathematics, online learning, virtual education. There's just so many things that are out there that I really want us to, as a district, think about. What do we look like in 2025, and then work backwards from there to say, okay, so what do we need to do in year 4, 3, 2, 1?
Right.
Similar to what we've done with our other process, but I think that would be, really the work that I would do. So we would gather some data this spring, bring that data and information back to our administrative council this summer at a retreat, and use that information to help us shape the vision and saying, you know, the perception is this, the parents, the students, the teachers, the administrators want X, how do we get there? And how do we, you know, is it in our plan or does it need to be in our plan? So that's really the work there. And then obviously in the fall, beginning there would be implementation of the plan when school begins in the fall. So.
And I know you put great value in strategic planning, as
Absolutely.
we all do.
Yep.
And I think my value in strategic planning has only been enhanced as I've seen how well it has served us as a district. Just a few days ago, on November 18th, I presented kind of an annual update to our strategic plan, which we have done annually for many years now, and I spoke about strategic planning and how it has served us as a district and how it has helped us to kind of chart a vision and enact what we wanted to do as a result of kind of the goals and objectives of that strategic plan. And I mentioned too on Monday night at the school committee meeting that I thought that the community as a whole, the municipal side of government too, has embraced the value of strategic planning, and I think has really used our school department strategic plan as kind of a model for other strategic plans to be developed in the town,
Absolutely.
the municipal government and whatever other departments. And what's been valuable to me as I reflect now on what is 9 years out of a 10-year period of plan, 2 5-year plans, is that we have achieved a lot, and I think we've been able to achieve as much as we have because I think that there was an appreciation for the thought that went into us articulating what we thought we might need down the road, and then working pretty diligently and collaboratively to achieve that. Right. So I think the idea that you have of kind of maybe starting all over again, so to speak, and refresh is probably, in my opinion, would be a valuable exercise, and I think is probably a smart thing to do. And I know you've talked about that, both with me and with others, and I think that there's a place for that now. 10 years is a long time, and a lot has happened in education in a relative. I think 10 years is a relatively short period of time, but a lot has changed, and that's only going to continue. There's only going to be more, and I think the approach that you're taking is. For what it's worth, I think it's a smart approach to take, and I know you've spent a good amount of time already kind of laying that out for the community as well. What do you see, Patrick, is a challenge that's kind of on the horizon for us as a school district, for you?
Sure. I think we've, I've always spoke about going from good to great, and I think we're at a place now where we're very good, and I think that brings with it its own challenges, though. How do we mobilize teachers, students, everybody in our school community to take that next level, that next challenge? And I think similar to what you see, academically across Massachusetts, our scores are very good, our scores are very high, but we still have our gaps. We still have certain subgroups that we need to focus on. We have our lowest 25% that's been identified. And I think those are the consistent challenges that we need to look, with our staff at. How can we help all students achieve at those same high levels? And it can't just be some of our students; it has to be all of our students, and that's always that challenge. How do we do something for all?
That is a challenge. Yeah.
And so I think that this is where we come in as a team. This is not something I'm doing. It's never anything I'm doing on my own. It's always as a part of the team. So this involves our principals, our teachers, our paraprofessionals, our administrators, student services, finance. You got to be able to pay for it. I mean, there's all those pieces that tie in. And so, I think the strategic plan is a great way to start with that. Like you mentioned before, it's just, continuously saying these are our goals, this is what we believe in, and how we're going to get here. And those are some of the things I've liked the most about the strategic plan, is that if it doesn't happen because of budget or because of other issues, we find either creative ways to think to patch it together for that year, but we stay committed to that goal. I think of the digital learning model. We wanted to have digital learning specialists at every building and a digital learning director. And then, we would say in our plan this year, hire 3. Well, we were able to hire 1. So we went from 1 to 2. We're still moving in the right direction, and we stay committed to that piece. So I think, another challenge when you say finances are always a challenge, right? There's always, we have a great system here where we meet with the finance board and the town administrator and the town finance director and the selectmen and the schools through the finance planning team, and it's some of the best communication. I think it's a great model, and,
Mm-hmm.
and it's such a fantastic way to do business. But I think there's always challenges
There
with
are.
finances and unexpected things to come along. But again, I think being committed to a vision, I think what I like about, and you alluded to this a little bit, I feel like our strategic plan is referenced by others, and it's not a piece of paper that sits on a shelf or a document that lives in a cloud somewhere. It is, it's referenced, and I think people see that you're not every year, oh, this year they want this, next year they want this. It's
Exactly.
like, we're committed to this. If it doesn't happen, we're going to regroup, come up with a different solution, but we're going to keep plugging away. And
I mean, we often talk about, well, is it in NRPS 2021? Because if it's not, why are we going in a direction that we didn't say we were going to go in?
Right.
And I think that often helps us to ground people and
It
bring
does.
them back.
And I think keeping that focus,
It's a focus, yeah.
you can go to a conference and hear what someone's doing over there and get really excited
Sure.
and say, but is that what we're committed to for 5 years, and what's the sustainability of it? How does it play out? So, and I think when you look back on, let's say, our digital learning model, we've got an enviable model in place that a lot
I
of districts are coming to us now and saying, how do we replicate that model? And I'll say to them, it took a long time, but we stayed focused. It was a 5-year plan that took 8 years, but eventually we got to where we want to go, and we would not be able to do the things we're doing without first of all, the infrastructure in the buildings. I've always spoken about the wires in the ceiling, the Wi-Fi, the computers, the devices.
Exactly.
You need those
The
pieces.
ability to accommodate. Yeah.
But then you also need the personnel and the human
Right.
infrastructure to, how do I use this device so it's not a paperweight on my desk, right?
Right.
You need to take those risks as a teacher or as a student, but you need an expert right there for you. And if it's someone who's, what we always said was, we had one digital learning specialist, if you remember,
Well, I
for the
sure
whole
do.
district,
Yeah.
moving 5 schools, and that person did the best that she could. But as a teacher, you're thinking, well, is she in my building today? Is she somewhere else? Is she?
Right.
We always said, as long as we want someone building base so that you always know that person's ready and available to work with you. So we committed to that vision, and we went from, it was supposed to be 5, 1 at each school, but we went from 1 to 2, and then the next year we were able to add to 4,
Yep.
and now we've got our 5. So
Well, I
and
think
it's great,
that's an interesting point I want to just expand on a little bit, because
Yeah.
I think it's important for the community to know that even though at times our vision might be very, very expansive and
Yeah.
wanting of a lot, one of the things that I think I have enjoyed about the work in North Reading is, and you alluded to the collaborative relationship we have with the municipal side of government, town administrator, Michael
Absolutely.
Gilberto, the Board of Selectmen, or Select Board, excuse me, Finance Committee, and the Finance Director is, I think, not something that every community, number one, either has in place, and secondly, I would add, and has the productive collaborative relationship that we have with those folks. Now, we don't always agree with everything, and sometimes there are discussions that get not heated, that's too strong of a word, passionate. I think, everybody's passionate about wanting to do the very best that they can do and have everything that they need in order to do that. But one of the things that I have most enjoyed about that relationship is that we have, while we might have had a very broad and expansive hope for what we wanted to do, in the end, everyone was very cognizant of what the community's ability to pay was and what the taxpayers could pay. And I think that, so while we might have had a plan that would lay out us achieving something in 5 years, we were cognizant of the ability to afford that, and might have to sacrifice in a given year or two and say, this isn't the year for us to do that because it's a particularly challenging financial year. But in the end, I think that approach gains more, period, and gains more respect, period, when you are able to kind of sit in a room and have an honest conversation and a recognition of the challenges. And I think it's important for the community to know that it may not, while it may not always look that way in a public way, the truth of the matter is that it's important work, and everybody's trying to do the best they can, and being understanding of what the financial picture looks like each year.
Yeah.
And we're in, as you well know, and you will come to know even more very quickly, we're kind of in that probably that first quarter of the budget development process, maybe very quickly entering the second quarter of that, and pretty soon, right after the Thanksgiving holiday, and then more so even after the Christmas holiday, that budget development process will really accelerate, and I would expect that there are going to be some challenging conversations had in order to achieve what we want financially for the good of the town and for the good of the school district. But in the end, I think you will fully come to recognize that people will come together and work with you to try to get that. And I know you know that to a degree, but you will get to know that even more.
I've had a chance through our transitions to be at a couple of the finance planning
already.
meetings and just really seeing how people come together is there's just a support for the schools. There really is. I mean, everyone advocates for their own. Your elected position has a specific role, and you're advocating for your constituents. But everybody knows how important. I think the school is for the kids that are there, and also the buildings and grounds are for the whole community. Exactly. Even if you don't have children in school, you're still using those buildings and grounds for different events. I think there's just an overall support, as there was for building our new schools. But just in general, there's just a great amount of support.
And I know you are fully aware of that. And you will come to appreciate that even more once you're,
I'm sure.
Once you're sitting where I sit, so to speak.
Sure.
But you are certainly well informed on that. So we talked, Patrick, a little bit about what you see on the horizon as challenges. I'd like to take it in a different direction. What do you see as the positives here? I mean, you've alluded to some of those, but I think I want to give you a chance to talk about the exciting good things that are going on and how you hope to capitalize on those.
I mean, I'll say personally, I'm excited just to be visible in the schools, getting to see kids in classrooms. Right now, so much of my job, I often describe like the foreign and domestic secretary. Like, I'm going out to a lot of meetings.
Yes, you are.
Finding out what's new coming down the pipeline from the Department of Ed or federal, state, bringing it back and helping to explain it. And I think this job is, I'll be in our schools a little bit more, getting around. I also observe teachers, which is the best part of what I do. When I get into the classrooms, I have about 30 art, music, PE, health teachers, and I love that, performing arts as well. But I find it's harder for me to get into other rooms, because when I am here, I'm trying to get into those rooms.
Sure.
And so just yesterday, I had a teacher say, "Hey, you should come by." I'm like, "I can do that. January 3rd, I'll be in there."
You'll be able to do that.
I'm kind of in just those little pop-ins that are just checking in on people, getting to know some of the students across all the different schools. I'm just really looking forward to those kind of opportunities, and I think people are excited. I think people are, I think, as you have so much respect, and there's so much that you've done for us, and it's just palpable the way kids and staff speak about you. But I think it's also exciting. I think folks are seeing, like, hey, what is this guy going to do? And
Absolutely.
I think people are excited to meet the new person and see how we can work together.
Sure.
And so I think that I'm looking forward to those relationships as well.
Well, I can say with full confidence you are very well positioned to take over and do a stellar job for North Reading. There's no question in my mind. In some ways, people ask me, especially now as I'm in the final weeks, what does it feel like? And they put words in my mouth and say it must be bittersweet, and I tell them it is. It is bittersweet, clearly. I've had a wonderful time working here for what will end up being about 16 and a half years, but one of the greatest pleasures I will have when the time comes that I am walking away from North Reading is knowing that I am leaving it in the hands of you. As someone who's very smart, very committed, very hardworking, extremely capable, positive, and exudes a confidence that I think will be something people will come to appreciate very quickly, because they know, I certainly know, and I know others know how committed you are to this work, and it has been your life's passion for all of the years. How many years have you been working in education? It's 10 in North Reading.
Just over 20.
Just over 20, and so I mean, this is who you are, and this is now what you are, and I have every confidence that North Reading Public Schools and the community of North Reading is going to be the beneficiary of your talents, and that if people don't know that already, and some of us who have had the good fortune to be witness to your work do, But when you're the superintendent, and I liked your analogy about being, kind of the Secretary of State of Foreign and Domestic Affairs, because you have been that person going out and bringing things back for North Reading, but very quickly they're going to recognize that that your skill set is exceptional, and I could not be more pleased that you are going to be the person that's going to be our next superintendent. So thank you for being my guest today. Is there anything more, Patrick, you want to say for the community? Or?
Just to say also, the decision that John and I sat down over the summer to talk about elevating Michael Connolly up to Assistant Superintendent, just to build, I know, in addition to me, that Michael being there, that strength, we're hoping to have someone to take my role, and I'll be sharing a lot more about that transition process as soon as that comes in. But we have some good ideas for building that central office team with Cynthia Conan also is fantastic. Dan Downs, Director of Digital Learning, and our principals and assistants in all those positions. We have a really strong team.
You are inheriting an enviable team of people. There's no question about that.
The stability and the quality
is
you're absolutely leaving it in great hands. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank you as well on behalf of all of us, and personally, you've done so much for this community and so much for me personally, just through the transition and just as a mentor in all of my roles, even back to when I was an assistant principal and you were a principal, and I know you were instrumental in giving me so much advice along the way, and it hits me every so often now when I say when you're out of the office at a meeting or something, and I say, oh, this is what it's going to be like. So I know that I can reach out to you and call you if I need things, but I just want to thank you on behalf of everyone. And
it's been my pleasure.
Myself,
Thank you for saying that. Best of luck. Thank you all.